The Iran war has entered its fourth day. Joining us now to break down the latest on Iran and the war powers resolution is Gerard Filitti, Middle East affairs analyst and attorney specializing in international law. So, Gerard, good afternoon. First, President Trump today giving insight into what led to these strikes on Iran. I have a clip here. Let's watch that now.
We were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now.
So, Gerard, your reaction there, it looks like President Trump is calling this a preemptive operation.
It's very clear what he's saying. He's saying that this was a defensive action on the part of the United States because of an imminent threat from Iran. They were not being honest and forthcoming with their negotiations. They were continuing to enrich uranium in order to build nuclear weapons. They were continuing to develop ballistic missiles that could reach the U.S. or U.S. bases in Europe. So this was a threat to the United States. President Trump saw that as an imminent threat and took action. That is, I think, what is absolutely clear by this statement is that he is justified by American and international law in taking military action against Iran.
What did he mean when he said that he may have forced Israel's hand? What does that mean?
Well, there have been some suggestions in the past few days that Israel was driving the motivation behind attacking Iran, that the United States was really following in Israel's lead. And I think President Trump just dispelled that idea that Israel is acting in cooperation and coordination with the United States at President Trump's urging and not the other way around. So this really is an American initiative, an American defensive initiative that forced Israel to act sooner perhaps than it may have wanted and not an Israeli action.
Now, on this issue of imminent threat, a U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, also revealing a big detail from negotiations with Iran. So I have another clip here. Let's take a look.
And let me say this, because I forgot this small little detail. In that first meeting, both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%. And they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance.
Okay, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this is pretty clear, and we have been clear from the beginning that we cannot allow Iran to become a nuclear power. That the agreement, the peace plan that was in place with President Obama, the deal to stop enrichment was not something that Iran ever held to, which is why President Trump canceled that JCPOA deal and is now preventing Iran because they clearly have stated that they were and they are developing weapons-grade uranium in order to build nuclear weapons. So the Iranians are not being secretive about it. They're not denying it. They're being forthcoming in the fact that they want nuclear weapons. And this is why President Trump had to act now with urgency.
Okay, so Gerard, some members of Congress are demanding a vote on a war powers resolution to restrain President Trump's military attack. So can you just explain for us, how exactly does the war powers resolution work?
The War Powers Resolution requires a president to notify Congress within 48 hours of hostilities commencing when the president inserts or starts an action, whether it's defensive or not, anywhere around the world. President Trump has done so. He briefed the G8, the Gang of Eight, before the attack started, and he's provided additional briefings and rationale since. Now, Congress has to authorize or not authorize this action because Congress ultimately has the power to declare war, even though President Trump does have the power to use the armed forces as needed for the defense of the country. The War Powers Resolution vote would be intended to stop President Trump from continuing to wage aggression against Iran. The issue is it's not likely to pass the Senate, even if it does pass the House, now that we have more senators coming out and supporting this action when before they may have been opposed to it. And even if this does pass both chambers of Congress, President Trump can just veto it, which means Congress would need to surmount a 2/3 vote in each chamber in order to stop this conflict. And they're not likely to have those votes at all.
Okay, just one final question, Gerard. So if Congress has the power to formally declare war, and And President Trump has called this a war, right? So what is the legal justification for President Trump to do this without explicit approval from Congress?
The legal justification comes down to the need to defend our country against an imminent threat, which is what President Trump explained in his press conference today, that the president does have authority under Article 2 of the Constitution as commander-in-chief, and this is how it's been interpreted in 3 or 4 decades of jurisprudence and 3 or 4 decades of presidents of both parties, both Republicans and Democrats, using American forces in a similar way, that the president can engage in force of arms in order to protect the United States. This is President Trump's justification, and it's a legally valid one.
Okay, Gerard, thank you for sharing your insight today. Always enjoy hearing it. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Don.